Yeah.
Too late.
Yeah,
I'm old.
Hey, we need them.
Honey, don't talk about me.
The only ones
Senate,
that
please
really
come
work.
to order. I have a committee of conference to announce for S-126, an act relating to healthcare payments and delivery system reform. Lyons, Gulick, and Douglas. S-126. That's what Senator from Chittenden Central told me. We'll take a brief recess now that we've started. Will the Senate come to order? We're going to try that again. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. My mistake. I would ask that we, that we take, let's see.
Pending entry to the notice calendar.
Well, it's already on notice. I would move that the rules be suspended in order to take S-126 off the notice calendar.
Up for immediate action. Perfect. The senator from Chittenden has moved that S-126 be taken, suspend the rules, and S-126 be taken up for immediate action. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Health and Welfare does not concur with the proposal from the House on S-126 and asks that a committee of conference be appointed.
The senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate not concur and that a committee of conference be appointed on S-126. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Now I will make the announcement for the committee of conference. S-126, Senator Lyons, Senator Gulick, and Senator Douglas. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick update, and you will begin to get these updates almost every time we're together, today, tomorrow, and until the end of the session. We will have to stop and start, do drafting work, stop and start, do caucus work, etc. So what we're working with now is the education bill has had some good progress today. Drafters are currently working on a draft to come to the floor tonight. It is not ready at the moment. So that being the case, Mr. President, I would move that H-479, an act relating to housing, be brought up via a rule suspension pending notice on the entry on the notice calendar.
The senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate rules be suspended to take up H-479, an act relating to housing, for immediate action.
Horrible.
Will the Senate please come to order? I did notice a couple of House members in the balcony, so I'm hoping that they have turned their phones off so that we don't have another embarrassment. Senator from Chittenden.
Mr. President, in honor of my colleague from Addison, I have left my notes downstairs and would ask for either this to be passed over or a brief recess to get those notes.
I would ask for a 3-minute recess.
I can do that.
We'll take a 2.5-minute recess. Will the Senate please come to order? Senator from Chittenden Central.
If I might, Mr. President, the Secretary reminds me that we should message the actions just taken. So with that, I would ask that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message to the House the actions just taken on S-126 and the conference.
The senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules to message its actions on S-126 to the House forthwith. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have messaged our actions on S-126 forthwith. I would remind the spectators in the balcony that there is no use of electronic devices in the Senate, and that means sending text as well. We now move to H-497.
479.
Oh, we haven't got there. Okay, we won't move there yet until we suspend the rules. The question is, shall the Senate suspend the rules to take immediate action on H-479? Got the number right that time. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator from Chittenden, we got. Oh, we do. Okay. Okay. I can do that. First time pulling things up out of order. We have on the calendar for action H-479, which passed the House on March 14th, 2025. It was referred to the Committee on General and Housing, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House, was it general? It is economic development. I thought so, but it says general on the bill. It was referred to the Committee on Economic Development, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as it appears in today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Affecting the expenditures of the state, the bill was Okay, it's not. Okay. Can I do that after? We do. Okay, so that's in my calendar. Here.
Then it went to natural resources, then it went to finance, and it also went today to appropriation.
Oh my God. Okay, I have just been made aware that this bill has done some serious traveling. The bill was also referred to the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy, affecting the finances of the state. The bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which recommends that the bill ought to pass in concurrence with the proposal amendment as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development. Affecting the expenditures of the state, the bill was then referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which recommends that the bill ought to pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H-479, an act relating to housing.
Senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, I rise to present the Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs Committee's proposal of amendment to H-479, a comprehensive housing bill that builds upon and refines the work of this chamber earlier this year in S127. As many of you may recall, S127 laid out a strong foundation for addressing Vermont's housing crisis by expanding infrastructure financing, supporting rental housing, and making environmental cleanup efforts more efficient for redevelopment. H479 represents a thoughtful next step, taking key elements of S127 and furthering several key areas where we had more time to hear from constituents, stakeholders, and municipal leaders. Let me begin with a brief comparison. Like S127, H479 codifies the Manufactured Home Improvement and Repair Program, expands the brownfields revitalization tools available, and establishes the Community and Housing Infrastructure Program, or CHIP, a more flexible tax increment financing option tied directly to housing. These components remain largely consistent with what passed the Senate. However, H479 includes new language in several areas of collaborative work with the other chamber. The Vermont Rental Housing Improvement Program, or VHIP, while S127 made technical adjustments, H479 adds a 30% set aside for the deeply affordable 5-year loan program and requires annual outcome reporting to ensure transparency. It also adds disaster displaced individuals to the eligible population and allows organizations to hold master leases, a key housing stability tool. Both committees of jurisdiction in each respective chamber have now heard broad testimony and are prepared to break relatively new ground by explicitly prohibiting discrimination based on both citizenship and immigration status in housing and public accommodations, something S127 began but did not complete. Additionally, landlords will now be required to accept an individual taxpayer identification number or other government ID in place of a social security number, helping immigrants without social security numbers access housing more equitably and stably. New sections in H479 sought to refine who could bring municipal appeals to environmental court, and your Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs Committee tried to honor the intent of the other chamber while keeping a geographic nexus to who has standing to appeal a municipal decision. You will hear in our report and from your Senate Natural Resources Committee that we may need to take a more holistic look at appeals before this standalone concept can be advanced. H479 includes several new data transparency measures, including changes to the landlord certificate, requiring anonymized rental data to inform housing policy. It also initiates a study on land banks and charges the state treasurer with piloting a rental payment credit building program, a promising idea we continue to work on in your Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs Committee after advancing S127. In short, H479 carries forward the infrastructure and environmental cleanup strategies of S127 while adding new provisions to protect vulnerable renters, expand eligibility for housing programs, and increase data-driven oversight. With that overview, we will take turns, and as folks may appreciate, we have not had a chance to meet consistently as a committee, so if there is silence for a moment, I will simply stand back up and report that section, but otherwise we will try to yield between 4 senators, and we will walk through these sections in more detail and outline the committee's rationale for each change if there is one. I just spoke to section 1, which amends the VHIP program, keeps the 5-year loans, includes a 30% set aside for the 5-year program, and requires annual reporting back to the General Assembly regarding program outcomes. The Manufactured Home Improvement and Repair Program in section 2 is now codified and receives base funding, which is really meaningful to your Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs Committee, because mobile and manufactured housing is some of the most deeply affordable housing that we have in the state, and this is the same as it was in S127. I will now yield to the senator from Windsor.
The senator from Chittenden Southeast yields to the senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be dealing with sections 3 through 5. As senators will recall, this section creates the Vermont Infrastructure Sustainability Fund within the Vermont Bond Bank. This is a welcome addition to our housing toolbox. As you know, we have very few tools that we can use in our economic development, in our housing, in our downtown and village centers. This We had funded, the House wanted to fund this with 15 million. We went with the governor's recommend of 9.1, and I believe the final funding of this out of appropriations and our signed bill is 7.5 million. And this fund will provide capital to extend and increase water and sewer capacity and other public infrastructure for our towns and village centers. The fund will provide low interest loans or purchase bonds from municipalities to expand infrastructure capacity, including preliminary engineering and planning, construction of water and wastewater systems, transportation investments, and other eligible activities as determined by the guidelines established by the program. The projects funded must have a connection to new housing and a commitment of municipal ownership of the investment. Section 4 is exactly as was passed by the Senate in S127. This provision is in the FY26 budget and is a policy fix requested by the Vermont Housing Finance Agency. It allows landlords who are utilizing the rental revolving loan fund to increase rent by an amount approved by the VHFA above the statutory cap of 3%. This is an important piece of flexibility they need, and they'll only do it if the evidence is provided that costs warrant such an increase. Section 5 also is as passed by all of us earlier this year, and in it we create a study committee to generate a state plan to develop housing for people with developmental disabilities and to report on the findings by November 15th of this year. As you'll recall, we are looking at 600 individuals around this state with developmental disabilities whose parents are aging out of care for them or who are losing their housing, and we desperately need a plan for how we can sustainably and supportively house these Vermonters. I now yield to the male senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Senator from Windsor yields to the senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, I prefer junior senator from Southeast.
Oh, there.
Joke. Thank you. I'm going to do 3 short sections. So section 6 really is a request from the administration that did not have any objections. What it's just doing is directing municipalities to share with the tax department an extract of a system they're using called Computer Assisted Mass Appraisal, the CAMA system database, as part of information submitted for grantless purposes. It's just going to allow us to better integrate as well as track a lot of different aspects of measurement, but more importantly from a tax purpose. For tax purposes, when it comes to assisting the municipalities, they need this, and it's just not currently in statute to ask for that to be shared. The next 2 sections that I'm going to report on are related. In Act 181 last year, we asked for some things that we didn't need and some things that we didn't need. For example, we asked for the tax parcel ID number, but the tax department really needs the SPAN number, the school parcel appraisal number. So this changes that, and it also just drops some other things that the tax department does not need for the rental credit. So it's just a slight alteration what was passed last year. So it's repealing it and then reframing the information they're collecting. That's all I have, Mr. President. I'm going to yield back to my more senior senator from the same district, Chittenden Southeast.
Senator from Chittenden yields to the more senior senator from Chittenden, but not the senior senator.
By a hair. Thank you, Mr. President. The next section, section 9, asks our Department of Housing and Community Development to issue a report back to the General Assembly with proposed legislative and funding language to establish either a statewide land bank or to authorize the development of regional land banks. This report is due by November of 2026. This was not in S127, but you have heard your Committee on Economic Development before discuss the concept of land banks and the potential value they have to help reorganize and clean up blighted properties or set aside transitional land for future disasters. And so we do continue to think this is important and are seeing other states start to use them and want to be able to capture that new information. Section 10, it will amend the law related to residential rental applications to require that a landlord accept either an individual taxpayer identification number or a valid government-issued ID in the event an applicant does not have a social security number in order for the landlord to conduct a credit or background check. This was not in S127, but as you heard, your Committee on Economic Development was separately taking testimony on this change. I can answer questions if folks have them, but it is entirely possible for a landlord to conduct a credit or background check without a social security number if they have a very common name. That might present a somewhat insignificant barrier that can be overcome with addresses and other identifying information. Sections 11, 12, and 13 should be read together. These sections will prevent discrimination on the basis of citizenship and immigration status under the state's Public Accommodations and Fair Housing Practices Act. This prohibits individuals from discriminating in providing accommodations, advantages, facilities, and privileges of the place of public accommodation, and from discriminating in housing. Section 11 amends the definition of harass, as that term is used in the Unfair Housing Practices section. Section 12 amends the Public Accommodation section, and Section 13 amends the Unfair Housing Practices section. Section 13 includes language that verification of immigrant status or differential treatment on the basis of citizenship or immigration status shall not be a violation if it is required by federal law, and that it is not discrimination for a lender to consider immigration status to the extent that such status has a bearing on the determination of issuing credit and loan repayment. Expansion of what was in S-127 includes the requirement for landlords to take an ITIN and a valid ID and to include immigration status in the housing protections. S-127 only included citizenship in the housing protections, but both are included now in the public accommodation section. Sections 14 and 15 and 16 and 17 were sections that represent a change to who has standing in a municipal appeal. And I would just remind people that there are generally 3 categories of appeals at the state level: municipal appeals, appeals in Act 250, and A&R permit appeals. Some of the language here, the standing of a person who's aggrieved, exists in Act 250 and particularly Act 250 appeals, potentially A&R permits as well. But it has not been a standard that has been used formally or in statute for municipal panels. Your Economic Development Committee wanted to ensure that we maintain the municipal appeals process almost entirely for those who have a physical or environmental impact because of proximity to the project, either within their municipality or in an adjoining piece of property, even if it's in another municipality. We labored over this language, and your Senate Natural Resources Committee can pick it up from there. I would now like to yield to the senator from Windsor.
Senator from Chittenden Southeast yields to the senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Section 18, again, passed exactly as we passed it in S-127. Last year, as you'll recall, in Act 181, we asked the Land Use Review Board to evaluate our Act 250 appeals process and to report to the legislature by January of 26. We asked them to study how to improve the efficiency, prioritization, and fairness of the Act 250 appeal process, especially for housing projects, while ensuring that potential conflicts of interest are avoided. As reviewing the appeals process is a top priority, we've asked that the report be delivered back to the legislature by November 15th of this year. So in time for us to meet our drafting deadlines and to be better prepared for next session. In addition, we asked that the Land Use Review Board specify in the report what resources it would need in order to hear appeals. You'll hear more about this from the senator from Washington. Sections 19 through 23 address our brownfields program, one of the major barriers to developing housing in our downtown and village centers. Like our downtown tax credits, our brownfield cleanup investments leverage a lot of redevelopment and private investment. In the last few years, our $19.2 million investment in brownfield revitalization funding leveraged over $389 million in redevelopment investment. So we get a huge bang for the buck in this program. The Agency of Natural Resources worked with us to address the concern we've had around the removal of developmental soils, contaminated soils from a brownfield, which is very expensive and also often delays a project. They made suggestions to reduce costs, and they agreed to make housing a priority for brownfield cleanup and to review the efficiency of the brownfields program. And that's what these next few sections address. So in section 19, we create a second option for soil removal, a second opportunity to dispose of developmental soils, the contaminated soils often discovered in a brownfield site. Instead of removing it and trucking it all the way up to Coventry, our only landfill at the moment, this section authorizes developmental soils to be managed either at the location permitted by ANR under an insignificant waste event approval, which contains criteria to ensure that the site is an appropriate receiving one and that the soils are managed appropriately and that there are no effects to groundwater. This means these soils could be removed to a site closer to the construction, which could conceivably save costs and manage soils on a property which poses no unreasonable risk to human health through thermal inhalation or ingestion exposure pathways and does not contaminate groundwater. Section 20 requires ANR to include a report on the number of insignificant waste events permitted as a part of its biennial solid waste report. Section 21 requires that ANR prioritize the review of remediation as a site that contains housing. This is a good addition. Section 22 requires ANR to report to the legislature on how to improve the efficiency of the brownfields program. And section 23 addresses the funding of brownfields, which again, we've passed and we'd asked for more money and we sadly got less. But this section 23, in combination with language in the budget, will amend an appropriation to the Department of Environmental Conservation in fiscal year 24 for the brownfields program. ANR is asking that the appropriation be amended so that the money be deposited into the Environmental Contingency Fund for assessment, planning, and cleanup of brownfield sites. This change will give ANR more flexibility on how to spend the appropriations for brownfields. And while we asked before, we ended up with $2 million for our brownfields work in the upcoming year. I now yield to the senior senator from Franklin.
The senator from Windsor yields to the senator from Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am very pleased to be able to report the most exciting sections of this bill. Section 24 and 25 make technical amendments to the statutes regarding smoke and carbon monoxide alarms to allow for UL 217 compliant smoke and carbon monoxide alarms to be used. The technical change is made at the request of the Division of Fire Safety. This is an upgrade to the standard and is designed to make us compliant with the most modern smoke detectors. Sections 26 and 26A relate to positive rental payment pilot program. This is a new program created by the state treasurer to develop and implement a 2-year residential rental payment pilot program. Treasurer will contract with a third party to administer the program, which is intended to enroll no more than 10 property owners and no more than 100 participants. Once enrolled, the third-party administrator will facilitate reporting timely rental payments of the participating tenants to consumer reporting agencies. Tenants are not charged for participation and are notified the tenant may voluntarily withdraw from the program at any time, and that failure to make timely rental payments may result in being terminated from the program. State Treasurer shall provide an interim report November 1, 2027, and a final report on November 1, 2028. Information in the report shall include demographic information of participants, cost breakdowns, challenges identified, outcome analysis, and recommendations for legislative action. Section 226A states that the treasurer shall not be required to implement the pilot unless funds are appropriated for that purpose. Section 27 creates a Community Housing and Infrastructure Program, CHIP, which is project-based approach to tax increment financing that stimulates housing development. The program authorizes municipalities to apply both education, 80%, and municipal 100% increment property tax revenues to financing and related costs for infrastructure projects, approved by the Vermont Economic Progress Council. A municipality may finance the project itself, but distinctive to this tax increment financing approach is the ability for a municipality to engage a sponsor, which could be a developer or an independent agency, to finance the project and to pay that sponsor back with tax increment. To avail itself of the program, a municipality must enter into an agreement with a developer to ensure that a housing development is built in response to the project. The development must include at least some housing affordable to a household at 100%, 150% of AMI, and must be in an eligible location, which includes areas designated Tier 1 or Tier 2, areas for which there is interim housing exemption from Act 250, areas for which the housing development site is compatible with regional and town land use plans and existing settlements, and areas within 1/2 mile of an existing settlement. The Vermont Economic Progress Council is authorized to adopt rules to implement this particular program. Section 28, this section amends the authorizing statute for VPEC, Vermont Economic Progress Council, to align administrative provisions of CHIP with those of other CHIP projects. I now turn this over to the senator from Chittenden Southeast and refer this to her.
The senator from Franklin yields to the senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. The effective date of H 479 is July 1st, 2025, except the rental housing revolving loan fund and the landlord certificate changes, which would take effect upon passage. Your vote out of Senate Economic Development was 410, and we ask for the bodies to the chamber's support.
I now recognize the senator from Washington, Senator Watson, for the Committee of Natural Resources and Energy report.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee made a couple of changes. So you can find them on page 2644, I believe is where it starts. We have a couple of instances of amendment. So the first one is that we ended up taking out sections 14 through 17. And this is the section that the senator from Chittenden Southeast referenced as amending how municipal appeals are governed in terms of who has standing. And there were a couple reasons why we took these sections out. So the first reason was because we actually got some conflicting testimony as to whether or not this language would broaden or narrow the scope of people who could bring an appeal to a municipal permit. So just as an example, so in section 14, it would change the standard for a person aggrieved to have a particularized interest, and it references a statute. And if you go to that statute, there's a very long list of reasons why someone could claim that they have a particularized interest under that. So that may broaden the scope of who may actually be able to appeal municipal permits. And at the same time, section 15, it limits the person aggrieved to owning property or occupying property in the immediate neighborhood of the property that is in question. And we actually had this, so this may narrow it, but this also leads to the second reason why we took this section out. We actually had some concerns from our legislative council that this may actually be unconstitutional. And so, because there's a constitutional right to appeal. So we heard that this was, language was not ready for prime time, and that it would require building up of case law under these new rules. But we are planning on having a report back from the Land Use Review Board on what ought to be done to amend the appeals process, not just for Act 250, but for municipal appeals as well. And that is changed in section, I believe it's 18. Let's check real quick. on the wrong page. Yep, so that's in section 18. And so that the date for that study comes back to us sooner, according to this bill. And so that way we will hopefully have that information to move forward with changing that appeals process next year. The Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee is not opposed to amending the appeals process, but we figured we ought to do that together with the information that comes from that report, especially because there are some potential problems with this language. The other thing that is worth mentioning is that in section 17, it allows a municipality to not hold a hearing on any bylaw amendments that are required by amendments to this statute. And what that would effectively mean is that an average person may not have the opportunity to weigh in on changes to a municipality's bylaws. Now, and we see the logic that it may make some sense that if a municipality has to make some changes that maybe there's no need for a hearing. However, we did hear testimony that within the scope of what is required by this chapter, there may be different ways to apply it at the municipal level. And so to the degree that there is some flexibility or discretion that's left to a municipality, we thought people ought to be able to have that opportunity to weigh in, and the municipalities ought to hold those hearings. So again, we took that section out. So that's what is in the first instance of amendment. In the second instance of amendment, we are adding a report on surface water discharges. And so considering that right now for surface water discharges or for wastewater in general, you basically need to have either a septic system or be connected to a sewer system. There may be some new technologies that may be available that might fall outside of that scope, and so we're looking. So this would allow. Well, it requires the the Secretary of Natural Resources to put together a report that would look at the steps for new surface water discharges, as well as identifying funding sources available to support such projects, and any further recommendations on improving and streamlining the process. And I think that's something we can all get behind, that we would like the process to be smoother and more streamlined. So that is the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Amendment to 479, and that was supported by the Natural Resources Committee 401. Thank you, Mr. President.
I now recognize the senator from Chittenden Southeast, Senator Chittenden, for the report of the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Finance reviewed this bill with an eye on anything that might affect the revenues of the state. Two sections came to mind, which are sections 27 and 28, as were reported by the senator from Franklin. This is language, I'll just remind the body, the Senate, I'll remind the Senate that that you've already seen this language. This is exactly the same language that this Senate approved on S-127. Due to the two housing bills moving in both chambers, as things do in this work, we wanted to make sure that this very important, critical program for CHIP, Community Housing and Infrastructure Program, that will do a lot to build houses throughout the great state of Vermont, was part of this discussion as it continues on either bill. So this language you have already seen. I don't have much to add. The senior senator from Washington during the presentation of S-127 elaborated on all the details, and I don't think I could offer more than what the senator from Franklin offered, other than to say that the fiscal impact of this program to the education fund cannot be estimated at this time. Your Senate Committee on Finance voted 4-0-3 in favor of the report as it came to us from the Senate Natural Resources Committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
I now recognize the senator from Washington District, Senator Watson, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Appropriations Committee reviewed this language and took particular interest in the parts that had obviously pertain to appropriations. And just as an example, we did look at the brownfields language, which does include an appropriation, but that is already in the budget. So we had no changes to make. So we concurred with the bill and approved that 700. Thank you.
So the question is, shall the report of the Committee on Economic Development be amended as recommended by the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. The question now is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development as amended? Are you ready for that question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would ask that our rules be suspended in order to move to S53, an act relating to certification of community-based perinatal doulas. Yes, thank you.
Senator from Chittenden has moved that the rules be suspended and we take up S53 for immediate action. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we will take up for immediate action S53. We have on the calendar for action S53, which was passed the House February 6th of 2025. It was referred to the Committee on Government Operations. Whoa. I'm jumping the gun again. Okay, got the wrong script. Okay, the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House proposal of amendment? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee took testimony earlier today from the reporter of the House Health Care Committee, and there are two what we consider non-substantive amendments. Basically, there are changes in dates that will allow both DEVA and OPR more time to work on implementing this bill. So the Senate Government Operations Committee, by a vote of 5-0, votes to concur.
So the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House proposal of amendment? Okay. Senator Lyons for the Committee on Health and Welfare.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Health and Welfare asks that the Senate concur with the proposal from the House on S53. Thank you, Mr. President.
So the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've concurred with the House proposal of amendment on S53. Senator from Chittenden.
Could I ask for 30 seconds?
30-second recess.
Yes.
You don't have to.
Will the Senate come to order? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would move that our rules be suspended in order to take H 479, the housing bill, through all remaining stages of passage.
The Senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules to take H 479 through all remaining stages of passage. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. Okay, and it's just, and it's a house, so it's in concurrence. Okay, okay. Are there, we're now taking up H479. Is that already on the calendar? Okay. We're taken up for third reading. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Please listen to the third reading.
H 479, an act relating to housing.
Okay. The question is, shall H 479 I threw the script away I had earlier. Shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have passed H 479 in concurrence with proposal of amendment. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finally, on that, I would move that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message the actions just taken on H 479 to the House forthwith.
The senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules to send its actions on H 479 to the House forthwith. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank the body for that hour of work that advanced a couple of very important bills. What I would say now is that I think we should take a dinner break. Drafting is still going on for the Ed bill, so it's good that we are efficient in our use of time. So I will adjourn until 6 o'clock with the hope that when we come back from dinner, we will have the amendment that's been drafted, and we'll be able to go from there. My intent is to get us out as early as possible tonight. So if we come back at 6, it is always possible that we will have to gavel in and gavel out until that amendment is done. But please come back at 6, and we'll hope for the best. With that, Mr. President, I would move that the Senate recess until 6 p.m.
Senator from Chittenden has, do we have to vote on that one, John? Has moved that the Senate stand in recess until 6 o'clock this evening. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we'll stand in recess until 6 o'clock today.